Welcome back. President Trump signing a new proclamation banning travel from more than 12 countries deemed national security risks and public safety threats. This list includes Afghanistan, Iran, Somalia, Libya, Yemen, all labeled as very high risk due to terrorist activity and weak or hostile governments. Venezuela, Cuba, and Laos all facing partial restrictions. The president also suspending any foreign student entering the country looking to study at Harvard. Joining me now is Kentucky Congressman Brett Guthrie. He's the chairman of the Energy Commerce Committee. And Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here this morning. Before I get to the energy space, I want to get your thoughts on this travel ban from the president last night. Your reaction?
Well, I agree with that. I think that we have all of these incidents we're seeing here in the United States, just terrible tragedies. My heart is out to the families that have been affected by these terrorist acts in our country. And the president said he's going to protect the country from terrorists. You know, he's trying to deport the families of terrorists as well. So I agree with exactly what he's doing. Well,
I'm wondering, about China and whether or not the president needs to get tougher on travel to and from China, given the fact that Chinese researchers had this plot to smuggle a crop-killing fungus into America. The FBI says this is incredibly serious. How do you see it?
I see the same thing. I think we have to look at how we deal with China in everything that we do. We're looking at AI in our committee and how China is trying to dominate AI in the world. And I think China is our number one focus that we have to have. And so I strongly support anything we can do to ban that type of thing from China.
Well, I mean, look, the list is growing here. You've got a surveillance balloon a couple of years ago surveilling American citizens. You've got intellectual property theft, COVID, fentanyl, and now an agro-terrorist product.
Well, just think if that country that you just described, who's done all of that, dominates the world platform for AI. That is actually what our committee has been focused on. Other than the one big beautiful bill, the other big focus on our committee is how do we unleash American AI. And the biggest issue that you talk to people in the AI community, they say we have the brain power, we have the capital. Our biggest concern are we're going to have access to energy, and are we going to have access to a regulatory system that allows us to compete and allows us to win. And it absolutely is a geopolitical issue. I don't think I'm too strong. I went to West Point, so in the 1980s, I don't think it's equivalent to when the Soviet Union and the battle for Western Europe in the Cold War. That's where we are with China now, and we need to take it that serious.
Well, I mean, I guess the next question becomes, are we not funding it, right? I mean, look at all the Chinese stocks that are traded on U.S. exchanges. I've done several specials on this for Fox Nation called Underwriting the Enemy. And, as an elected official, do you need to do more in terms of taking those companies out of the U.S. exchanges, pulling some economic levers here to stop China? Because are we not funding all of this?
Well, I strongly support anything we can do to stop China. So that specifically, I don't have the knowledge right now to give you the exact answer on that, but anything on China, what we're focused on, we do know that they are trying to dominate the world with AI. Yeah. And so we are struggling to make sure that we, in our committee, to try to get a bipartisan agreement, because if energy policy changes every 2 to 4 years, then it's difficult for Americans to invest and to grow our energy. And so we're trying to find that pathway forward, because we know that if the delta between what China energy growth and our energy growth is just astronomical, and that's going to absolutely affect our ability to compete.
Well, that is the reason that President Trump has all hands on deck when it comes to energy, including investment in nuclear. Before we move on, I want to get your take on the debt limit. But before we move on, let me show you the conversation between the woman who was at the University of Michigan and her boyfriend. The boyfriend, Lee, says, where did the seeds get put? In the tube? Jean, who's the student from Michigan, says, I put them in my Martin boots in a small bag, the Ziploc bag, very small. Lee says, that's good. Just put it in your shoes. Jean says, I stuffed them in the shoes. They continue this conversation, the couple. Lee says, Teacher Lang's seeds must be placed well. So the teacher gave them the seeds to bring here, it sounds like. Jean says, where to put it? I only have one pair of shoes. The insole cannot be pulled off. Lee says, did you bring just one pair of shoes? Jean says, no, 3 pairs. I'm wearing 1 pair. I mean, this is a conversation, and this transcription, it was released by the FBI. This is just extraordinary. The hearing is going on today at 1 o'clock. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Michigan told Fox News that Jean is still in custody pending the hearing. The public defender is currently representing her, though she's trying to retain private counsel. Do you have any expectations for this hearing today?
Well, I certainly have expectations that the Trump administration and the Trump Justice Department is going to take full action. That's something we haven't seen in the past 4 years. We have to, this absolutely is one big piece of the puzzle that we put together to say China is a direct threat to us. And we have, as you talked about investment earlier, companies that invested in China, China investing here. We have to realize that we can't continue to do that.
Right.
We have to define the situation as it is, and we have to take every action that we can. And I don't want to keep repeating, but could you imagine if the country you just described dominated the world platform for AI? We actually had a hearing the other day. There was a medical device made in China implanted in a person that had a URL code back to the University of Beijing. So if anything that we have coming from China, we have to take as seriously as that situation you just described.
Wow. Well, look, President Trump is going to speak with Xi Jinping this week. I hope one of the leading points of their discussion is this, and these unending efforts to undermine and undo America by the Chinese Communist Party. I hope the president has that on his list to talk with Xi Jinping, in addition to the trade issues, which I suspect is up there. Now,
I'm sure that he will. I'm sure that he will.
Yeah, you're sure he will. Okay, great. President Trump is pushing to scrap the debt limit after the Congressional Budget Office's new assessment of the big, beautiful bill. Now, the CBO is predicting the tariff revenue alone that the president has already taken in will cut the deficit by $2.4 trillion. This is good news. I know that the Senate is wrangling over what more to cut. But what is your assessment of what the CBO is telling us, even as Elon Musk is still pushing back on this bill? He says it should be scrapped entirely. In fact, he tweeted out this, "Kill Bill." Office of Management Budget Director Russ Vought says that the CBO's score confirms the bill will reduce deficits by $1.4 trillion over 10 years, Mr. Chairman. You authored the massive savings portion of the bill. It includes reforms to Medicaid. Tell us what more can be done, and specifically what reform of Medicaid looks like.
So we did. My committee was commissioned with getting $880 billion in savings. We reported out a bill that passed the House that saved over $1 trillion. President Trump put it very bluntly that he wanted to make sure that Medicaid protected the most vulnerable and who it was designed for. That's exactly what we did. We focused on waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. The only people affected by our Medicaid bill are people that are ineligible or illegal or able. So when I say that, there are people on Medicaid that aren't even eligible for the program. The Biden-Harris administration put in rules that you can't take people off the Medicaid program even if they're not eligible for it. The other, we know states, and we know that people are on, states cover people that are illegally here. And we also know that they're able-bodied people. That's where the big number when they say that people are going to lose their health insurance. Yep. There's it's hard to believe, but there are 4.8 million people receiving Medicaid that are, and we exempt people that are pregnant, people that have a substance use disorder, people that are mental health, medically frail. So these are people absolutely choosing not to work, and it's hard for hard-working taxpayers hoping for overtime, and now we have a benefit for them in this bill as well for overtime, to go to work every day. I worked in a foundry before I came here. Yeah. People work hard for a living, and for them to go to work and there was an American Enterprise study that studied this group of people who are able-bodied not working, said they spend over 6 hours a day on video games and socializing. That's just not fair.
Wow.
And on the debt limit, what President Trump wants to do is not scrap the debt limit, is move it outside of the next 4 years. I think we're going to do well in the next elections. We've got great candidates, great members, but the probability is not zero that you'll deal with Hakeem Jeffries. Could you imagine President Trump trying to deal with the debt limit, which is really falls on the president of either party, whoever's in power, to really accomplish, and have to negotiate with Hakeem Jeffries? Yeah. Do you think the debt's going to go down if Hakeem Jeffries is doing the argument? Well, the debt's only going to go up. So I think what we need to do is move it after his presidency and spend the rest of his presidency doing more to lower the debt. Lower the debt.
Yeah, you make a good point, because all of these negotiations underway in the Senate right now have also a lot to do with the 2026 election, and whether or not the Republicans hold on to the majority, and whether or not President Trump will have to deal with Hakeem Jeffries as the speaker.
Could you imagine the debt limit going down if he does?
That would be in the middle of impeachment trials as well, no doubt. Congressman, good to see you, sir. Thank you.